So maybe I could just say really quickly that, gosh, who we have in the room today is kind of an eclectic group. But I represent the project managers here at Qualtrics, and we do a ton of research. So that's primarily where we're coming from, the perspective. So Qualtrics is a particular interest. And we also do some kind of routine process kind of stuff. So Formstack is also a interest. And I understand that today we're going to go over both, right? Qualtrics and Formstack. And so this is Graham Gideon, am I pronouncing your name correctly?
Yes.
From Office of Information Technology. Thank you for coming today. And you brought with you, maybe you can do an introduction.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Graham. We work in a group called Constituent Services in OIT. This is Alex Carpens, one of my colleagues, Darren Sanchez, another colleague. Generally, we work on the Office 365 system as well as a grab bag of other third-party applications, Qualtrics and Formstack, being two of them. And we are here today for Qualtrics and Formstack. And Alex, take it away.
All right, so I'm going to go first. I'm going to go over the quick and dirty introduction to Qualtrics. We're not going to go dive into this too deeply because it is a pretty, it's a pretty robust application. It's probably the industry standard for surveys. If you've taken a customer satisfaction survey at some point, it's likely that you've used you've taken a Qualtrics survey. It's a very robust platform, but I'm just going to kind of get into the basics of setting up a project in Qualtrics, setting up questions, showing you how to distribute the survey, and then getting reporting out of it. The reporting is pretty robust as well. So, since we don't really have a whole lot of time, we're just going to jump right into it. So, if you have the Denver credentials, the login for Qualtrics is ucdenver.qualtrics.com. You should at least be able to log in, but you probably won't have permissions to create the survey until we actually go in and approve it. It's kind of a process that is outlined by the university that you need to get kind of like approval ahead of time to actually access.
Yeah, if you have a ucdenver.edu email address, you're basically you have permissions to use it. So you would just have to call the OIT help desk and request that, and that request would come to us, and we would enable your full permissions on the survey.
So once you log in and you have those permissions to create surveys, you'll come to a home page here where you can have a list of your current surveys or projects in there. And if you have, of course, if you don't have anything in there, this will be empty. But if you go to create a project, that's pretty simply just go to this button that says create project. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build out a survey based on today's meeting, right? There'll be a survey that getting feedback on our presentations here. So I'm going to choose a blank project. This will be okay. We'll create that project here. And basically it sends you to kind of a canvas for creating different types of survey questions. You'll see along the top we have kind of the survey canvas, right? Where you're building all the questions out. You have some various actions that you can do. Distributions, we'll get into that a little bit later. Data and analysis, and then reporting tab along the top. You also have some tools from within the survey for specifying the look and feel, survey flow, options and tools. But right off the bat, it gives you a multiple choice question right out of the gate. And so let's just really quickly, we'll just use the default right here, and we'll say, who had the better presentation today? Option one will be Graham, two will be Alex, and okay. So that's very quickly, a very basic thing, a three choice, multiple choice question. Let's go ahead and create a new one. We'll do something a little bit different here. You'll see up at the top here, you have the choice of several different question types, along with other types of content. Like right at the top, you can have static content. Look at
One quick question. So you put the question in the block area, and you just use the block.
Oh, sorry.
Is that?
No, I actually meant to put that in here.
Okay. Do you ever, maybe you'll get to this later, but do you ever recommend blocks? I've gotten.
Yes, I recommend blocks if your surveys are really long and you want to split them out by theme, or if you're using something like pipe text, that's a good way to do it. But yeah, thanks for calling that out, because this was actually a, a mistake on my part. Let me remove that. Okay.
Oh, you just put the title in the block title
Yeah.
rather than in the question title.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks for that. Good work. Good work. See, I was just testing. So right here, okay, so we're doing question number 2. Right here, we have a couple different types of questions. So standards are multiple choice, text entry, matrix table sliders. There are a couple other ones that are a little bit more advanced. We're really not going to get into these quite as much. You can also add some information in here, like timing. It lets you manage the timing for certain questions or certain blocks on there. So basically, like, you can time it out, so you're only giving like your respondents a certain amount of time to complete certain questions or certain blocks. Meta info question, this is kind of something that works in the background, so you can insert this. Respondents won't see this, but we'll record things like browser type, browser version, OS, all this information right here that you have in there. It'll collect that information, and then you'll be able to report that out afterwards if you want to as well. But right now we're just going to do another question here. This one's going to be a matrix table, right? We'll start this one in here, and then we can also add a couple of different options here. So let's say we don't want to just have 3 by 3 here. We want to have, say, 4 by 5, right? So there's kind of like the, whatever, the Likert scale kind of question. There's also a great little tool here called automatic scale points. It lets you choose from a range of different standard kind of scales that you would use in this. So you don't have to type them all out or whatever. So I'm going to go from bad to good, right? So we have extremely good, moderately good, slightly good. And it automatically upscaled it to 7. I'm going to scale that back to 5, all right? I don't want to have that wide of a range on there. And so we'll say, please, let's see. Okay, I did put that in the question field, right? Okay, so this will be loneliness. Knowledge.
You know, I'm going after you, so.
All right. Okay, and so I've got this scale here. We're going to be judging us on, you know, our grammar, diction, cleanliness, and knowledge. Let's say we want to do the same thing for me, but I don't want to write up the whole thing out again. I can just go ahead and copy this question, right? And then I'll just change the prompt in here. Just change Graham to Alex. And we've got 2 right there. And let's see, what else is it going to add on there? Okay. Going to create a new question here, new question type. And this one is going to be Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Instead of this one, I'm going to, hold on, never mind. I'm going to go ahead and add this in here. We'll do a rank order question. Oops. And so we can do, this one will basically be a way that you can kind of drag and reorder your, it's like a kind of a rank ordering of the tools that we're going to discuss today. So this will be Formstack, Qualtrics, some other tool. All right, let's create one more question. This one's going to be one where we're getting feedback. It'll be text entry. And actually what I want to do in this case is I want to base the text of this question on the results of this question right here. So I basically want it to auto-fill in something. I want to add, the question is going to be, why did you choose? It could be either Formstack, Qualtrics, or some other tool, but it'll basically dynamically fill that in using pipe text. So what I will do here is I will put in did you choose? Okay, and actually put in the pipe text here, and I'll go survey question, and we'll find this one, and basically it will say choice with the lowest numeric value, because that'll be the highest rank number 1. All right. And so what I'll do, now I have this survey kind of built out. What you can do immediately then is just preview it just to see how it works for end users. So when you click on this preview button, it opens it up and it shows you how it appears in a browser window and on a mobile device. I think more and more people are using mobile devices to complete these surveys, so certain question types are better suited for mobile than others. So let's just say, go for equally good or bad. I'm pretty neutral on Graham. You know, I'm not going to toot my horn too much, but I'll just say somewhat good. And then we can rank order these just by clicking and dragging, right? And then you see this, the pipe text didn't actually show up. That's something that we have to fix here. So I'm going to close that preview. And what you need to do to get that pipe text to work is you need to put in a page break or move that question to a different block. So I'm actually going to add a different block here. All right, and I'm going to move. Getting used to. Oops. I get used to Graham's computer here. All right, I'm going to move that down into that block right there. Let's preview it one more time. Let's see. Qualtrics on there. Oops. Qualtrics. And then it moves me to another page. Then it auto-fills that Qualtrics text there. So pipe text you can use for a bunch of different things. It's not just for like pulling information from a question, but let's say you have an initial field has like name, you know, first name, last name. You can choose that first name field with the pipe text and move it into other questions. It's like, so, you know, hey, Graham, what do you think about this? It kind of personalizes the survey a little bit more. Kind of interesting. Let's go ahead and close the preview here. And it's about ready to go. So there are a bunch of different options you can choose for questions as well. You can also force responses. So let's say you can want to make sure that these questions get answered, people don't skip through them. You have different types of, you know, you can allow multiple answers, of course, for like multiple choice things. It's like the multiple selections. But I'm not really going to go into all the different question types, but that's kind of very quickly how you go through and build a survey. Let's say you're ready to share this survey. You can share it a couple different ways. You can share it as an anonymous link, which means that basically the link goes out into the wild. Whoever clicks on the link can complete the survey and you get the results in. They're not tied to any names or anything like that. If you want to attach this survey data to actual people, you can create a contact list and distribute it directly to that contact list as well. So let's say you want to actually get that information. You have a set group of users. You can go in and build some contact lists up here. Click, okay. So if you want to build a contact list, you can go in and, oops.
You just have to give it a name here.
Yeah. And then you can either import it from a file, and it's basically asking for a type of, formatted CSV. If you want to just download this example document, it kind of gives you the format that you want. Or if you want to add the users manually, it has a bunch of fields in here: email, first name, last name, language, things like that. Obviously, the email is the most important thing. That's the required thing. But then you can have that list as a way to distribute your survey. Let's go jump back into this project.
What does it do? Does it just send an email to that list with that link in it?
Right. So basically, when you go through and go to distributions, you can email this survey directly from Qualtrics. So basically, Qualtrics sends that email, uses that contact list, sends it all out like that. Or you get a single reusable link, which is the anonymous option. And that just means everybody can use that. So that's basically your two options there. So if you compose an email, it'll basically ask you for that distribution list, and it lets you customize that message a little bit as well before you send it out. Cancel out on that. Let's jump. Go ahead.
Can you change the from email to be your email, or does that have
Yes, you can. Yeah, you can actually, when you go in and you send that, you can have it come from your email address and get the results sent to your direct email address.
Reminders, you can exclude those that are invitation again.
I believe so, yes.
So if you have access to multiple email accounts on the UCD server, can you use any of those? So for example, I have like a general study email address. Can I use that as?
Sure. Yeah, you can customize that. But you will be logging into the app with your, your regular credentials. But yeah,
I know
you can
with
customize.
the app we had to basically we were able to do it, but we had to go through the back end.
You could also just log into that email account, get an anonymous link from Qualtrics, and just put that link in the email. You don't have to do the email through Qualtrics.
Right. Exactly. So,
What does the information look like?
what's that?
When you send this out and you get 25 people that respond, what does it look like?
I am getting right to that. That was the next thing I'm going to talk about. Let's jump back in. I'm going to go back to my dashboard here, and I built out the same survey earlier, and we got a couple of responses. I'll just kind of fudge some responses today. So when we jump into this training survey, this has the same questions that we had on there. Note there's this other thing up here. Once you have the survey built, it gives you an IQ score on that, and that basically just tells you how good your survey is, whether it's optimizing questions for mobile, and actually there are a couple of questions in there that are not as mobile accessible. That's kind of the Likert scale questions that I put in there. They're not as mobile friendly as others. Accessibility, some minor issues, but display logic, grammatical conjunctions, all this stuff is good too. So you can go in and fix any issues with your survey before you send it out. But let's go ahead and take a look. I'm going to actually jump right to the reports area, right? So when we jump into that, we'll see, oh, it's overwhelmingly, Alex had a better, but also, I mean, he's tied with, they're both equally good, bad, but overall, I think Alex is the winner on this one. We also, buddy. But you can also see, so it defaults to these bar graphs, but if you click on this, you can actually choose a different type of display, like a breakdown bar, which kind of might be a little bit more useful, or pie chart or gauge chart, whatever fits the type of question a little bit better. And then you'll see as you go down there, you can rank Graham on the following criteria. So this has like the color keys for that. And then with this report, you can either, let's say you have kind of basically just a set start and end date. You can export it as a PDF if you want to and share it. You can also send it out as a link. The link option will also, if the survey continues to be open, people who can view that link will see the updated information as it comes in. And they basically just have access to that report. Yes?
Can you do cross tabs? So for instance, one field by another field? So say gender by ethnicity.
Yes, you should be able to do that. Yeah, that's a little bit more in the advanced stage of things, but you can actually take, you can create a part of a report using even questions from different surveys that you own. Like you can move in a question from one survey into another and just join them together as a report that's kind of doing a comparison as well. But yeah, you can build out these pages using all sorts of different criteria. I haven't gotten into that one so much, but yeah, I know that it's possible.
Can you export things into like Excel or SAS and other analytical?
I believe so. Yes, you can export the data, the raw data, and usually comes up with CSV type file and do that in whatever application you want. Yeah.
I think you do like SPSS and stuff too. I don't know about that.
Would you get like a data dictionary with codes and stuff like that, describing the data?
Probably. I don't know. That's a good question.
But you could do it through Word. I haven't been able to do it to Excel. But
those are all good questions, but I'm happy to follow up with any of these things.
Sure.
Can you log some of those?
Yeah, so I heard the question about the data dictionary. What was the other one? Just to be able to export it into other like, analytical. Yeah, right. We'll kind of,
and when you're setting up your questions, like a multiple response option, do you have control not only over the text that appears, but which numeric values
Yes.
are associated with each
Yes.
text response?
You can customize that as well. Yes, absolutely. And yeah, you can do some pretty advanced math if you want to in there as well. Stuff that obviously we don't have time to go over that as well either. But what I will refer you to is once you are all logged into to Qualtrics, you have access to. If you go up to this help menu up at the top here, go to the support site. There's some on-demand training. Basecamp.qualtrics.com. And you can go in and when you learn to use the Qualtrics Research Core, which is what this is, there are videos in here, configuring your project, customizing your project, finalizing. And I think a lot of the stuff that you're probably going to be most interested in is this big section right here, analyzing your feedback. This will probably answer most of those questions that you've had about the data as well. That's a section that I kind of skimmed over for the most part. I'm just more interested in building them and like seeing the results and playing with the reports on a very basic level. But that's all going to be in there. This might ask you to actually let me check here. It might ask you to authenticate. Click on that. If you get to this screen right here, if you go sign in with SSO, the organization ID is UC Denver. And then it'll take you to the login screen. You log in and and it'll give you access to those trainings. But I think that's the time that I have right now. We got to kind of give Graham some time for Formstack, so you can accurately judge both of our presentations.
I think,
Oh, I'm sorry. So, one of the issues that I have is I do a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
And, they need to go to different groups of people.
Mm-hmm.
So in my contact, and I apologize if you already went over this, I cannot figure out how to pull out, these 5 people out of this list. Is there an easy way to do that, or am I just missing something?
I believe there is. If I had a contact list built out, I'd show you. I remember seeing that, yeah, you can go to that contact list and then kind of drill down to each individual members within those different contact lists. You could, yeah.
Amazing.
Write that down. We'll get you the solid answer on that.
Yeah, your best bet may just be sending particular people an anonymous link. You don't have to use a.
But if you want to track if you actually want to track their response, you'll actually need to send extra contact. So.
It is like a click and drag thing, or like a checkbox?
I believe it's kind of like a nested menu kind of thing. Yeah.
And you can copy a contact list, right? And then just edit it too.
Right.
But it needs to be in the CSV format, right?
You can, once you have them in there, I mean, you can create them manually, just like if you're doing a contact list with 10 people, you can just create one manually and like write their names and emails. There's a few different ways you can do it.
Or copy paste or whatever.
Yeah, well, it's not so much creating, it's just, pulling out of a certain list. These 3 people need to get this survey from this list, and these 5 people need to get it from the other list.
Shoot
one of us an email.
Okay.
Yeah.
wait, yeah.
Our emails are on the invitation.
Graham, you ready?
I'm really going to try hard not to denigrate my coworker during my presentation. Let's see here.
As soon as you said, "What are you getting there ready?" The rest of us show of hands with you. Okay. Cool. Looking for resources.
All right. Very similar here. You're just logging in with Passport to the application itself.
Great. Huh.
Passport's not getting it. That's interesting.
It might be. Just trying to. Didn't like incognito for some reason. This is Formstack. These are competing applications in a way. Essentially, you build web forms, surveys, things that people can provide you information. You're collecting that information, and you can sort of slice and dice it however you would like. I'm kind of more versed in Formstack, and Alex is more versed in Qualtrics, so that's kind of why we're doing it this way. Let's see, let's just jump in and do a form. Because I'm an administrator, I see everybody's folders in here. That's essentially how Formstack organizes your forms. Everybody gets like a named folder, like for your department or individually, and you can have different permissions on those. Some people can just read the responses, where other people can edit and create new forms, things like that. So it just depends how you want to set it up. in. This is kind of my little test bed area. And we will, unfortunately the Zoom is on here, which is making this a little challenging.
Drag that around if you need to.
Here we go. Stop it, Zoom. I just say create new form. There's two form types. A standard form is essentially one person is filling the entire thing out. A workflow form is I start filling out the form. Once I get done with my part, it sends an email to Alex or Darren and says, hey, there's a workflow that you need to participate in. Generally, I would recommend starting with standard forms because workflows can get a little crazy. I'm just trying to find something. Because all of these are housed sort of in the same place and using the same URL, you do need to find a unique URL. It'll tell you if you don't. Basically, this is going to be very similar to what we just went over with Qualtrics. If I want to put a, let's start with this. If I want to put a description area up here, a lot of times, you know, for something like research or someone's applying for a scholarship or an open job position, you want to give them some instructions here. So you edit this description area. Description area is nice. You can put images in here. You can kind of change the text, do all sorts of stuff here. You say, please fill out this form. The nice thing, I always tell people that this View Live Form button is your best friend. And boom, it you know, creates that. Because I'm an administrator in here, I need to do one extra step that other people don't. I have access to like all these different themes in here. Normally, each person is assigned one theme, and essentially all this is a HTML header and sometimes footer that sort of gives some formatting to your form or brands it for School of Medicine or Office of Information Technology, something of that nature. Usually I just find out when people ask for permissions on this thing, usually I just find out, are they downtown or are they Anschutz, and I give them the appropriate.
Are you able to customize that if you have like a branded project? Or is it only...
Generally, we're trying to stick with downtown Anschutz or combined depending upon kind of who that office services. What you can do is you can use that description area to put like a banner link or some sort of logo in to sort of sub-brand it for your program or department or something like that.
The same thing with Qualtrics too. There's some established university branding on that as well.
And do you have to have that branding?
Yes.
I believe
You don't have to. There's some cases where if you want to embed a form, like there's a number of groups in the university that have embedded just like a contact form in their homepage. So when you land on the School of Pharmacy's like outreach page, you can, you know, just fill in your name and email address and they'll start sending you a newsletter. Because it's embedded within another site, we're not going to put branding on that just because it kind of messes up the formatting and everything. So yeah, it's possible just to not have a theme at all. It's generally better looking, as you can see there. So as far as the builder goes, let's say I wanted to have a name. Say it was a simple contact form. You know, I'm interested in hearing more about your, you know, the programs available at the school. I can put name and address. So generally this builder, I think of Formstack as three different things, kind of. There's the builder, which we're looking at now. There's what's called form settings, which are sort of global settings that control the how the form is going to act. Is it going to send Alex an email when anybody fills out a form? Is it going to redirect to a different web page? There's a lot of different sort of configuration that can be done there. But as far as configuring each field, once I've put my field over here, I can go ahead and change the field name. I can make it more of a question. I can say, what is your full I can make it a required field. I can make it a hidden field. Hidden fields are very valuable for, say, there's job applicants, and you have a committee that's looking at those job applicants. You can put some hidden fields at the end of the form where the committee members can take a look at all those applications and put their own text comments, you know, sort of after that applicant has submitted. That way, you can come into the committee meeting and everybody sort of has their comments already there. It's valuable for some other things as well. If you say you want to have a particular question on a form for a spring semester form, but you don't want to have it on there for fall semester, there's some other options here as far as, you know, sort of how it's going to format those boxes as far as last name stuff. You can also create more than one column on the form. If we look at this, like right now it's kind of one column. You'll see that address is spanning the entire thing. I think you can go up to like 4 or 5 columns if you just kind of want to squeeze more information in a smaller space. Any questions about the builder? The different types of questions get kind of interesting. Essentially, the way that they do it is different question types are going to provide you different options as far as upon submission or once something has happened. For example, this email field, Formstack understands that that's an email address and that you can send emails to it. So when you want to send a follow-up to your submitter, you can configure that so that they get one right when they submit, and then maybe it's a sign up for a fundraiser or something. They can also get a notification or like a submittal email 2 days before the event, like just as a reminder. So there's kind of nice little things like that built into it. I can put supporting text down here under the email saying, please provide your UCD email. I'm an amazing speller. So there's just a bunch of different ways to do things. There's also like logic. Let's put if I have a multiple choice question, which is going to be a radio button, a checkbox, or a drop-down list, I can attach logic to other fields based on the choices in that radio button field. So essentially, it's something of the nature of show this field if this checkbox is option 1. And you can do things like, my standard example for that is if you were filling out an insurance form with a list of dependents on it, you would have a checkbox for yes, I have another dependent, and then it would show another like line, fill out your second kid's information. But you can do a bunch of different stuff with it. We have a number of groups in OIT, and because different grant organizations want different types of information, I have one group that has created basically like a form portal, and based on the options that are chosen in the form, it's making other fields available. So based on what type of grant this person is applying for, they're required to provide different types of information. So it's very powerful in a way that you can make one form that has 20 different purposes. And that's just kind of easier because rather than getting on the phone with someone and saying, go to this specific form and give me your information, you can say, everybody go to this one form and give me your information. So that's the builder. These other questions get a little exciting. If you are doing some sort of fundraiser or a sign up for like a summer camp or something like that, I have about 5 or 6 different groups using this for summer camp signups. You can actually get a credit card merchant account through the university and attach credit card payments to your form. That's pretty, there's a little bit of back and forth on it, but it's working right now for about 10 different groups in the university. And the nice thing is it'll, when someone pays via credit card, it's not going through all the university speed type jazz, it's just popping it out to your Wells Fargo account. So there's some nice things about that. You have a question? Sure.
What kind of validation do you have on the numbers?
On the number field?
Right, number type. Is there any validation to that?
Yeah, there is validation. It's fairly minimal. It's basically just going to be like formatting. Essentially, you can just say minimum, maximum, how many decimal places, is it a currency field, things like that. You can attach calculations to number fields. That's kind of like Formstack understands the field. It'll understand that it's a number field, and you can do like quantity 3 at $35 a piece, and it'll do a little calculation in the form so that you're charging the person the right amount of money or things like that. One of the things about Formstack is you can always throw some HTML in there. So if you need to see ucdenver.edu, you can throw a little code in there that'll kind of do front end validation. So it's the same thing as Qualtrics. You can kind of get as far as you can get with basic form building, but then you can also just make it as complex as you want. So there's a lot of options. Yeah, if you have a specific need or something, feel free to let us know and we'll look into it. So that's the builder. Any other questions about that? So the second part of this, which everyone builds their form and looks at it and is really proud of themselves and go, oh my God, it looks so great. Let's send it out. I would recommend a couple of things before doing that. Put your form in front of someone who knows what you're talking about, someone who works in your office, someone who's on the same program. See if they understand it and can fill it out. Put it in front of someone who doesn't know what you're talking about at all. walk down to the first floor, come over to campus services, put it in front of your best friend, see if they can understand it too, because I've noticed that oftentimes we all take what we do on a daily basis sort of for granted and the complexities of that. So it's helpful to have someone who doesn't know what you're talking about test it. The other thing that I would highly recommend is looking at these settings, at least from a cursory perspective. This is where you can like rename it if you want to put a date. If we're going to do this again in a year, I could put 2020 on here. I can turn the form on and off. I can do that either manually or conditional. So say it's an invitation to a luncheon. I can say once I get 20 submissions, turn the form off because that's as many people fit in the room. You can turn it off on a particular date. There's a bunch of different stuff you can do there. This is probably one of the most important areas. This is where you're going to configure the emails that Formstack is sending out when someone submits your form. By default, it's going to send a notification to me and it's going to say, hey, Graham, Darren filled out your form. Here's your information. I assume that you guys work with HIPAA data and with FERPA and there's rules around it. This is fine. If you're sending information, by default, this wants to be all submitted data. So if I had a social security number field on here, it's going to send that to Darren, right? Assuming that I was sending it to Darren. Right now, it's going to send it to me. And that's fine because within our own domain, we have an agreement with Formstack that those emails are encrypted. The complexity comes in when I'm sending one of these confirmation emails to my submitter. I can't guarantee that my submitter is going to give me a UC Denver email or any other sort of large email system that Formstack has an encryption agreement with. If someone puts their patient history and provides me a Joe's Crab Shack email address, I can't guarantee that that's going to be encrypted during transit. So what I always tell people is in these confirmation emails on anything that you're collecting FERPA or HIPAA, just make it a custom message. You can put the form fields in the message, just don't put any that are sensitive. Don't put a social security number or patient history or whatever. But these are all very configurable. Again, I can send this out immediately or on a schedule. A bunch of different things I can do. I can use that notification as a way to engage a third system. If I have a Salesforce implementation, I can send that Salesforce intake an email about my contact form. So there's a bunch of different ways you can integrate it with stuff, and this settings area is a very good way to do that. Very quickly, I'll go through the rest of these, and then we'll open it up to some questions. One of the nice things about, and Formstack does this a lot cleaner than Qualtrics does, say you wanted to ensure that anyone that was filling out your form is a member of the university community. I can choose to password protect my form using single sign-on, and I just select passport. Once I've done that and save it up here, when someone clicks on my form link, it's going to redirect through the passport login, and I can actually grab, say my email field. I can essentially map that field from passport information. This is very useful for when you're dealing with students. I have some advisors downtown that, like, if a student is interested in changing their major or dropping a class or something like that, they can use this to authenticate that student and know that it is that student that's requesting that major change. So there's some valuable stuff there. You can also do stuff like put a PGP key on it so that that notification email being sent out has a little bit more protection around it. Let's say 3 or 4 of you shared a Formstack folder, and you wanted to have feedback, some manager wanted to have feedback about all their employees, but you didn't necessarily want all the employees that had access to that folder to be able to read that feedback. You could just encrypt the submissions database, which we'll look at here in a second. And essentially that would just mean that you're not going to be able to see those submissions unless you have that password. Formstack also does a feature that's sort of halfway between a really standard form and a workflow form. Essentially what it can do it very simply. Like, let's say there's a, say I have to apply for a vacation for a particular time, and my manager, my director, and human resources need to sign off on it. Formstack does that through a feature called approval. So I go in, I fill out the form, I say I want to go on vacation in March. And there's a bunch of different ways you can configure the emails and how the approval works. But basic example, I fill out that form, my manager gets an email that says, hey, Graham wants to go on vacation, what do you say? And she can hit either in that email, or she can log into the application and say yes, no, and make comments. Once my manager has done that, an email gets kicked off to my director. They do the same thing. They say yes or no. Once my director says yes or no, an email gets kicked off to my resources and they say yes. It's kind of really good for administrative stuff and applications. Things when you want to, a lot of times these notification emails, people just gloss over them, but if you require a little bit of interactivity there, that professor that's running that research study is going to be more aware that they have a new assistant if they're required to approve that. So there's some useful stuff there. Since Formstack collects a lot of information, it also allows you to integrate that information with a whole bunch of other systems. You can send data to OneDrive, you can set up credit card systems. There's just a whole bunch of different third-party apps here that essentially Formstack will send your data to. Feel free to look through that list. It's pretty much endless, all the complexity you can create for yourself. Plugins, we don't really need to talk about that. Advanced PDFs this is actually something that we get requested a lot. People build a form and it looks nice on the web, and they want all the submissions to look like that. So they can like print it out or send somebody to a PDF, and it looks, because a lot of times these submissions are just like text or just like sort of an Excel spreadsheet. Essentially what WebMerge and Advanced PDFs let you do is format the response as the form itself is formatted. It just looks better if you're handing stuff out to people, or you just kind of want to put best foot forward. It gives you that option. Let's look at a submissions database real quick. I gotta remember one where there's actually some stuff in here. This was a sign-up sheet that was done for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences runs the Denver Science Fair now. So these were all some sort of sign-ups for the science fair. Essentially, each one of these is a different form submission. If I want to see all the data associated with it, I just click on that link. I can control which fields, this table settings link here lets me control what is shown and what is not, so that I can kind of get a good idea just at a glance. This is amazing right here. All the sign-up sheets and things that I've done, you can export this out to CSV, Excel, whatever you want. This pops out a little Excel file. Say I need to send an email to 200 people that have signed up for different trainings and tell them the schedule has changed. I can pop this out to Excel, open it in Excel, highlight that entire email field, copy it, and just paste it literally right into Outlook and send all those people an email really easily. So there's kind of some productivity and simplicity things that this provides. That's about the whole spiel. Anybody have any questions? I know it's kind of 30 minutes of blah, 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 but.
I come from the perspective of usually building surveys for the purposes of research.
Right.
So Qualtrics is much more familiar to me, and I'm used to seeing it.
I think Qualtrics is more oriented as a research platform
Yeah,
than
it is.
Formstack.
It seems like it has a whole lot of additional features that.
Formstack started from a web store marketing space. Qualtrics started from a customer survey and research study space. So when you get to know both, you'll kind of see how they each have a different focus.
Things like credit cards, signatures, those are things that Qualtrics does not have, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
And if you want,
those are all specific to.
One of the big things I've found, I'm actually working on this with a professor right now, is passport protecting a survey in Qualtrics is 50 times the work it is in Formstack.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to get them to do it the easy way, but you know.
Yeah, if you want to use that as single sign-on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you have to do it with a contact list. And if you wanted to do the entire university community, it would be a contact list with 70,000 people on it. So it would be a little,
This is kind of an odd question, but as somebody who approves student workers' timesheets, that's my only experience with Formstack. But I've gotten these emails from the university, something about the backlog forms and clearing out the forms.
yeah, I sent out that.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, you're probably going to get another one this week too.
What's the management side of?
So, yeah, Formstack is not a standard OIT application. The application was brought into the university by the webmaster at Office of International Affairs, basically because of time zones. They were having a lot of issues collecting information from international students. So they decided to do as much as they can via web forms. The bursar's office, the finance office, the registrar noticed how good this was and started hiring the webmaster at OIA to build them forms. And at that time, he was doing it as really like a turnkey system. Someone in the university could come to him and say, hey, I want you to build this form and I want it to do A, B, and C. So he would do that. His manager quickly realized that she was paying the university form administrator and not the Office of International Affairs webmaster, at which point she called up our manager in OIT and said, hey, how can we offload this to you guys? About 3 years ago, when I started with the university, it was kind of one of my first projects was moving this thing over from OIA to OIT. And yeah, there's some things about it that are not standard OIT practice that we're kind of still working through. And we inherited their 1,000 users and 2,000 forms per year sort of licensing. We've actually done some applications to get a little bit more money for it, but essentially I have to sort of manage this thing as far as like, hey, come use this, it's the greatest thing ever, but don't use it too much or it's gonna break. And it's not so much users, we have about 100 users available, it's more, we're running out of forms. We got about 20 free forms right now. And I've done some reports on it, and there are some that are 3 years old and haven't seen a submission in 3 years. So yeah, periodically I send out that email saying, hey, if you're really not using this, please let somebody else use it. That's basically where we're at with that. But it's always kind of a balancing act.
Qualtrics is unlimited.
Qualtrics is 10 times as expensive as Formstack.
Right.
I was recently working on a project, and the principal investigator wanted to be able to automatically send out a gift card after each participant completed the survey. Have you guys experienced that in either of those programs? Is that something that
not that specific use case, but that sounds like an end of survey action that you could do in Qualtrics. You probably just have to customize a message or something, like if you have, let's say, like a link that takes you to like that gift card or redemption site or something like that. You can put that in as an automated email at the completion of the survey. So that's probably a way that you could work that into it. But yeah, that would be like a survey, end of survey action. So they go through, they complete it, boom, and send them an email or put up a message that says, go here to redeem your. Yes.
When you have an open URL that's out there, do you, I don't think you make proper sense, any prevention from these bots getting a hold of that?
No, not really. If they have a specific URL, then they can spam it.
Okay.
From, yeah, so that's probably, that's the advantage of having, like, if you have a contact list, like, otherwise it's, but they'd also have to have that exact URL, which is.
It's happened to us.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Wow.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah. If somebody's email gets compromised or something, or somehow it moves out, then yes, then there's not really much to prevent that from happening. But if let's say you should be able to exclude some data from a certain time range, maybe then when.
Yeah.
You got all these spam.
Coming in quickly.
Right. So yeah, that's inherently less secure if you just have that anonymous link out there. Right, I mean, like what I did for that sample data, I took that survey like about 7 different times, just to get my data, that was just me refreshing and taking it again and again and again. So yeah, no, a bot could probably do that pretty easily.
One super specific question about Qualtrics. When I was creating a survey, it somehow was on some setting where it was linking it to the IP address. And so we kept trying to fill it out. But it like knew that it was the IP.
Oh, right.
Do you know how that would happen?
So it prevents somebody from the same IP address from submitting a survey again?
Right. It like kept going back to the same question. I assume that's in settings somewhere.
Probably. That's probably in an advanced setting somewhere.
An advanced setting, probably.
Well, that is an advanced setting, it sounds like, but that's something I have to look at.
Random advanced setting was clicked, probably.
Probably. I can look into it and research it for you.
Okay, well, we got past it. Dennis over here figured it out, and I was like, what is that? Like, yeah.
There's a lot of customization that you can do on these surveys. So yeah, a lot of stuff that I don't even know about yet. So.
What's the turnaround time for getting help with these?
Pretty quick. Both Formstack and Qualtrics have pretty amazing support groups. I've noticed usually Formstack is back to me within an hour or two.
Okay.
Qualtrics is usually like within 24 hours. Okay. But yeah, both of their, it's just support at qualtrics.com or support at formstack.com. And they're usually very helpful.
Or if you need like
support at qualtrics.com, support
at formstack.com.
At Formstack, okay.
Or if you can also reach out to like the service desk and let's say you want like a targeted training, like let's say you want to specifically do this in Qualtrics, we can probably tailor some custom training for that as well. So let's say you want to dive deep into the data analysis thing, then great, I can come prepared to discuss that stuff, you know, and basically say, you know, because this one was kind of just more of a general thing. I'm like, okay, I don't know what their use case is. I don't know what their need is. So it's going to be a very general thing. But if you want, let's say, like a targeted thing, if you want to just go over the different types of, you know, creating contact lists or whatever, happy to do that.
And the questions you'd ask about the gift card, that's always the challenge that we're trying to manage, is how to provide incentives now in this electronic world, as opposed to physical mail.
Right, so I'm happy, so be happy to brainstorm on any of these solutions as well, so.
Well, I have a list of questions here too, and thanks for sharing what you.
Totally, I'll shoot that to you. I mean, I can't summarize they're my notes, so I might need to clean them up,
but that's helpful. And thank you for coming, so we'll follow up with a few questions and.
Yeah, we're off to the races.
But thank you so much. This is really helpful.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
No problem.
And I'd love to hear too what your other you know, you mentioned that you do a lot of 365 trainings. What are the other really popular trainings that you